Hi, I'm Jim Paxton. On tonight's show, we'll see state wildlife agencies working together for conservation. Then you'll meet the winner of the Gut Pile Raffle. That's a yucky name for a program with a good cause, hunters helping endangered California condors. Then we'll celebrate 30 years of our community fishing program at a brand new urban lake. All that and more on Arizona Wildlife Views.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Well, I have many moments in my childhood.
Every moment of our lives is a chance to understand what matters.
I had a childhood where I spent a tremendous amount of time in the outdoors.
And these are moments that matter.
I remember when I was a kid, probably 8 or 9, and my dad took me on my first deer hunt.
We lived up around 5 different lakes, so I spent every day during the summer down on the lake fishing.
They're moments we'll always remember.
And I remember sitting there and this bobcat came out in the Sendera, and it was just magical, and I've been hooked ever since.
There are memories in the making.
Being able to hunt my first birds.
Stories we'll share with friends and pass down to our children of family fun, outdoor adventure, and amazing places with abundant wildlife.
I have so many of those moments. It's really what helped shape me as a person.
Those moments are made possible by moments like these. Every day, all across North America, state wildlife agencies are leading heroic efforts to restore endangered species, repair critical habitat, and maintain our nation's natural abundance of fish and wildlife for generations to come.
The states really are the cornerstone for fish and wildlife conservation across our country. Really always have been. They're the laboratories of innovation. States are the champions of America's fish and wildlife. We're the voice, we're the ambassador, the caretakers and stewards of this extraordinary assemblage of fish and wildlife and outdoor recreation that we've inherited and that we want to pass on to future generations.
The leaders of those state agencies and their federal and private partners in conservation must realize they stand on the shoulders of giants. Giants of conservation and American democracy who made the most of their moments on Earth. Those fathers of this great nation who designed a government that gets its power from the people, and those founders of a system of conservation that we call the North American model.
The North American model grew out of the concept of democracy. People own the wildlife, and therefore it is their responsibility to manage the wildlife scientifically, not politically.
It's a system that recognizes wildlife as a natural resource belonging not to the government or the crown, but to the people who are its rightful owners.
As we built the country and we defined the authorities between the federal government and the states, under public trust doctrine, the wildlife became under the state authority.
Public trust doctrine gives states the privilege and the responsibility to hold wildlife in trust for the people.
It is fundamental to the democratic federalist principles that the states manage the wildlife for the people. That is a product and a function of this great democracy that was established here, right here, 200 years ago.
Of course, most people have never heard of the North American model or how it evolved over the last century. They're not aware of the Pittman-Robertson Act or other mechanisms of sportsman-funded conservation. Few Americans would recognize the names of conservation trailblazers Gifford Pinchot and George Bird Grinnell. And those who do speak of Theodore Roosevelt and Aldo Leopold likely know only the trimmings of their contributions to the most successful conservation system the world has ever known.
Look at all of them out there, it's amazing.
But people do appreciate wildlife. And as heirs to North America's wildlife legacy, they're fortunate to have conservation leaders who understand their critical role in the world today.
These jobs are an extraordinary privilege. There's no doubt about that. That's absolutely undeniable. But these jobs are not about being a director. They're really about being a steward. They're about being a champion and enabler for this extraordinary group of professionals that are biologists and technicians and game wardens and communication specialists and outdoor recreation professionals, and helping to inspire them to do more for our home ground.
Well, you know, it cuts both ways. Because the brilliant work they do, the incredible entrepreneurship that they employ, the opportunities they seek, the risks they take, it's just amazing when you have people like that that are working for you, but really doing the work that you dreamed about your whole life. If you can't be inspired by that, you know, you really need to wake up and ask yourself, what's life all about? I'm also proud of a system that has restored wildlife across our nation through the 20th century at a level that nobody ever dreamed possible.
For more than 100 years, state wildlife agencies have had a huge role in transforming this continent from one that exploited and exhausted its precious natural resources to one that's blessed with a wealth of wildlife thanks to sustainable, science-based management and conservation.
We've got the most successful black-footed ferret restoration effort of all the efforts in the country, here in Arizona. When you try to describe the achievements of Arizona Game and Fish, it becomes an almost impossible task because there are so many diverse accomplishments.
Those successes are made possible by our North American model of wildlife conservation. It's built around laws like the Pittman-Robertson Act, which generates billions of dollars a year for conservation from an excise tax on the sale of guns and ammo. Yet today, conservation is at a crossroads.
Huge challenges, absolutely. And as our society becomes more urban and we're more split from our connection with nature, there's enormous challenges from that. Population growth creates enormous challenges. The demands that are placed on our natural resources are greater than they've ever been.
No doubt, there's a litany of challenges, and they're big. As I reflect on 20 or 25 years in this profession, the challenges that we confront, they're bigger, they're more complex, and really at scales that are absolutely unprecedented in what we've seen in the past. And so that creates enormous challenges for us. It also creates enormous opportunities.
Opportunities to draw on the source of past success, so that one-time challenges become a brighter future.
When I look back on the history of wildlife conservation, there are special moments in time that are unique, that are turning points, that 50 or 100 years from now, people will write about. Today, right now, this is one of those moments.
He's ready to go in his burrow.
Once again, North America is looking for leaders to define a path forward.
It starts by doing good conservation work on the ground every day, 24/7, and we do. We've done a marvelous job through the 20th century. The job is going to be bigger in the 21st century. There are a lot more species at hand that need to be addressed, but the states are still going to be the players that have the resources on the ground to be that incubator to bring forth the conservation of the future.
We have to think about what's going to need in 100 years. And that's what's probably the biggest challenge and could be the biggest missed opportunity, that we get so focused on the problems of today that we don't change and anticipate the needs of 100 years from now.
When times get tough, this is what we've got to remember. This is what we've got to keep in mind. Our future generations, we do it for them. The kids, Sammy and Marilyn Joe, these grandkids, and all of the kids in our country just like this. Right, kids?
Yeah. Crawdad.
If our nation's wildlife legacy is to prevail through the 21st century, our conservation leaders will have to seize the moment.
Every moment does matter, but I think it's less about thinking about those moments as a defining moment than thinking about the fact that the work we do is measured in generational scales. We are planting the proverbial tree to have shade for somebody that's not even born yet. The defining moments in conservation are usually identified after the fact. We always need to be looking forward.
Any day spent fishing is considered a good one, but for 11-year-old Vinnie Pusateri, this free trip to Lake Powell was the result of doing the right thing at the right time.
I got drawn for a deer hunting in the Kaibab, and they were protecting the California Condors, and so if we turned in a gut pile, then there was a raffle for a fishing trip, and I won the raffle, and now I'm here.
Vinnie, his dad Peter, and sister Hannah spent the day on the lake with Chris Parrish of the Peregrine Fund, the lead agency in the recovery of the California Condor.
I think anytime you get to, well, especially with the trip like this, meet new people, meet people that mean something to me just because of the effort that they made on the Kaibab, and to see it be a young man like that and to hear the story about their hunt, to get to meet them, come out and spend the day on the water, talking to that young man and watching him the way he fished is everything that's good about the world in the future. I mean, that lights my fire, because it's that kind of next generation that's going to make this thing work, and it's going to make all conservation work.
The California condor is the largest land bird in North America with a wingspan of over 9 feet. The birds were facing extinction when in 1987, the last 22 living in the wild were captured. Those birds were used to begin a captive breeding program that now numbers more than 400 birds, about half of which are in wild populations in Arizona, California, Utah, and Mexico. In 1996, condors from the program were released near Vermilion Cliffs in northern Arizona. And though their numbers continue to rise, there are still obstacles to overcome in their recovery.
The Arizona population is doing great. Constantly growing with some setbacks throughout the year. Our major obstacle in establishing this population is lead poisoning. But the birds are doing great. They've answered all the major questions that we had in the early days of the program. Will they find their own food? Will they find their own nesting sites? Will they nest? They've answered all those questions, and they're doing great. If we can just keep on reducing lead exposure in their range, we are well on our way to a full recovered species.
Lead exposure is the #1 threat to condors. These huge birds are scavengers that rely entirely on animal remains they find in the wild, which is why the voluntary lead reduction program has been so important to their recovery.
The big focus of the Condor program is to get the lead out of the field. What these people did that we took today, they shot a deer with a lead bullet and then they took the effort to pack the gut pile to us at our check station. And for that, we put their name into a drawing, and they won this as a raffle prize. We had several prizes this last year, and this is one of the cool ones that we got to go and enjoy together.
Along with the raffle prizes, Arizona Game & Fish offered hunters who drew a deer tag on the kaibab a coupon for 1 box of non-lead ammunition. The program is supported in part by the Heritage Fund.
Since the early 2000s is when we first identified lead on the kaibab as being a problem for condors. And immediately following that, we shared those data that we had collected in the field with the Game & Fish, and they started the program in 2003, educating the hunters and offering them all the information from all the scientific research that we have done, and then publishing that in the hunting regulations and beginning to ask people to use non-lead and sweetening the pot by actually offering a free box. In addition to that, the gut pile program, painfully called the gut pile raffle, makes it sound like you're going to win a gut pile, but the gut pile raffle was an effort again to offer people another opportunity to participate. And now that the condors are expanding north into Utah, Division of Natural Resources in Utah is doing exactly the same thing, modeled after Arizona's program. So those are the efforts currently in place.
Surveys show that about 90% of deer hunters took one of the 2 measures to reduce the amount of spent lead ammunition in the condor's core range, and the efforts are paying off. In 2014, there were more than 70 condors in Arizona.
And then once you have the head, I'll set him in Alan's lap. Okay. Set him in your lap.
On this day, 3 new birds are being added to the wild population from breeding sites outside of Arizona. Before their release, the condor team attaches identification numbers as well as transmitters so they can track the birds.
We have 2 birds that are 2 years of age and 1 bird that is 1 year of age. We supplement, it's a reintroduction. So we have wild breeding. We've had wild fledged birds ever since 2003 every year. And then throughout the year we release captive bred birds to build up a wild population. We release usually 6 to 12, 15 birds a year.
Condors generally lay 1 egg every other year, so their reproduction rate is slow. This fledgling's wing motion is a signal to its parents that it's time for a meal. But right now, it doesn't seem to be making much of an impression on the adults. Later this year, the condor team will capture the young bird so it can be fitted with its own transmitter and ID number.
These birds can fly 200 miles a day. A lot of the core range is right here in the Vermilion Cliffs where we are. The southern extent of their range all the way to the south rim of the Grand Canyon. We've had birds fly to Flaming Gorge, Wyoming, which is beyond their range, but a juvenile bird could catch the right wind and follow the right eagle anywhere. But roughly, we always say Flagstaff to St. George and everywhere in between.
Condors are very social and inquisitive birds, and they can often be spotted in groups near Lee's Ferry, where Navajo Bridge makes an attractive, if not sometimes precarious, roosting spot. Still, it's an impressive sight when the birds open their giant wings to catch the warming rays of the early morning sun or soar on the thermals rising from the canyon floor. A huge cooperative effort has gone into reintroducing and maintaining these birds, and none is more important than the hunters who are helping to reduce their exposure to lead.
It's so simple, and the great thing is that Arizona has completely embraced the voluntary program. There is no thought of a law to make where we're going to ban lead ammunition, where a lot of people are afraid of. California did that. We're not California. Our hunters have proven to us that through education and understanding that they can change on their own without being told that they must do something. We've had for the last 7 years, 85 to 90% of our hunters have participated in lead reduction actions to save our condors.
Meanwhile, back at Lake Powell, the Pusateri family is wrapping up a great day on the lake, thanks to Vinny.
Daddy outfished his dad, the guide, and the game and fish guys. So,
Well, it's true.
yeah, we had a great time.
You know, the more people we can communicate with and let them know who we are, what we're about in conservation, and when the hunters and fishermen find out that we're just like they are, and we've just set ourselves to this goal of recovering the condor, they're right there with us. It's just a matter of how do you contact the masses in that way. And this is a good way to do that, by taking people fishing, and hopefully they'll talk about it.
Today we are in the city of Maricopa here at the Copper Sky Recreation Complex. This is a brand new park and brand new lake just recently built. The grand opening is actually today, but the park officially opens tomorrow, so we have a sneak preview here today. This park has a 5-acre lake that does allow fishing. This lake will be stocked on an every other week basis from mid-September through mid-June. As part of the grand opening celebration, we're having a fishing clinic that's open to the public. Anybody who wants to come and try fishing for the first time for free can do so. They just have to come in and sign in. They can borrow a fishing pole, borrow some bait, get some information about the park, and the clinic will run today from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So as of January 1st, 2014, the program name has changed from the Urban Fishing Program to the Community Fishing Program. And the reason this program exists is because not everybody can get out to the big lakes, up to the White Mountains, to the Colorado River to go fishing. So what we want to do is we want to bring fishing to the people where they live. So we come to these neighborhood parks right here, and we provide fish into the lakes so people can have an opportunity to go fishing. A nice, inexpensive, close to home, safe opportunity to come catch a quality fish. And these are healthy fish right off the farm, good to eat and very delicious. Right now there are 36 lakes in the community fishing program. These lakes are all across the state. We have lakes in the Phoenix area, we have a lake in Payson, here in the city of Maricopa, down in Tucson, and also we've expanded into the Yuma area as well. There are 4 parks down in Yuma that are now part of the community fishing program. Once this clinic is over, people do need to have a fishing license here. Kids under the age of 10 can fish for free. Kids 10 to 17 do need the $5 combo hunt and fish license to fish. And everyone age 18 and over does need a fishing license. So I've been a part of the community fishing program for over 8 years now, and I love it. This is just a fabulous opportunity of reaching a part of the population that may not normally get an opportunity to come fishing. That here we are right in their backyard. They can walk here with their pole, with their bait, and come catch a fish.
Well, that's our show for tonight. If you'd like more information, visit our website at azgfd.gov. For all the fine folks at Arizona Game and Fish, I'm Jim Paxson, and we'll see you next time.